All right, in this video, we're going to continue our discussion of formalism by thinking about an author's writing style. Now, we already, in one way, looked at style in the last section. We asked about the choice of the ambiguous term him in that quote. Word choice is a key aspect of a writer's style, as it again shapes the way the reader is experiencing the story. Style refers to the individual traits or characteristics of a piece of writing, to a writer's particular ways of managing words that we come to recognize as habitual or customary. Usually, style is expressed through an author's diction or word choice. Is their word choice abstract or concrete, bookish or close to casual speech? Are they often using similar types of imagery, patterns of sound, figures of speech, or other devices? Now, one of the reasons why I chose Hatchet for this class is because it's written in a very, very distinctive, different style than is typical for many children's or young adult novels. Let's take a look at a passage here and notice not only the words and sentence structures being used, but how it's being arranged on the page. This is just in the first chapter. Divorce. It was an ugly word, he thought. A tearing, ugly word that meant fights and yelling, lawyers. God, he thought, how he hated lawyers who sat with their comfortable smiles and tried to explain to him in legal terms how all that he lived in was coming apart, and the breaking and shattering of all the solid things, his home, his life, all the solid things. Divorce. Secrets. No, not secrets, so much as just the secret. What he knew and had not told anybody, what he knew about his mother that had caused the divorce, what he knew, the secret. Divorce, the secret. Now, the first thing you should notice in that passage are the singled out words, divorce and secret, often given their own lines. Now, in poetry, line breaks are often used to provide emphasis or shift focus, and that's no different here. The words are obviously ringing around inside of Brian's head a lot, something he's dwelling on, and the sentence structure bears this out. There's a lot of small sentences, but there's also a lot of comma splices, which indicates Paulson is attempting to give us a sense of what it's like inside Brian's head when all of these thoughts are jumbled and colliding into one another. The phrase fights and yelling, lawyers, implies that the idea of lawyers intrudes upon another thought, as per that comma separating the first couple of items in the list from the last before a parenthetical diatribe about lawyers in particular. We also see some interesting words used to describe divorce. Notice they're not words relating to the legal terms from the lawyers, but violent words like tearing, breaking, shattering. It's one thing to tell the reader a divorce is ugly, but these words make it feel painful, physically, to Brian. And one can't overlook the distinction between regular, everyday secrets and the secret, spelled with a capital S. Now, in such a short passage, and yet so much meaning and put into the style of writing that's totally unique to this story, and just like with point of view, one really gets a sense of how important something like an author's style can be if you imagine the passage written in a different style. Now, let's think about diction as formalism in words. Now, the Handbook of Critical Approaches to Literature explains formalism as, quote, intensive reading begins with a sensitivity to the words of the text and all their denotative and connotative values and implications. An awareness of multiple meanings, even the etymologies of words as traced in dictionaries, will offer a significant guideline to what the work says. Formalism asks us to be close readers, looking at significant words and phrases and their multi-layered meanings. Now, first, we need to understand the difference between denotations and connotations. Now, the denotations of words are the literal definitions, what one would find in a dictionary. Now, I would always suggest using the best source for denotations in history and Etymology of Words, the Oxford English Dictionary. Now, whether you're a Virginia Tech student or a student elsewhere, your university's library will give you free access to the OED through your online database portal. I've even provided a link to the OED portal from the Virginia Tech Library on our Canvas page. There is an off-campus sign-in required, but that's going to be your best source for denotative definitions of words. Not all dictionaries are made equally. Googling a word and clicking on the first thing, it's actually not the best source of that information. But the connotations of words, however, are more reflective of context and the understanding of usage. Connotations of words suggest tone, mood, and alternate meanings. Connotations are understood, cultural, or emotional associations that a word or phrase carries that adds to its denotations. For instance, when you see a bumper sticker that says support our troops, there's a reason why it doesn't say support our warriors or support our fighters. Instead, troops comes along with the connotation of the everyman, trucking along with the weight of the world on his back, carrying a burden so you don't have to. Warriors and fighters have much more violent and oppositional connotations, stronger, more able to carry on, perhaps less in need of support. Now in Hatchet, there are 3 words that we may want to look at in terms of how they are being used in the text itself. How the word choice and emphasis on these words helps create a desired effect. Those words are divorce, secret, and of course, hatchet. Now I've included on our Canvas page definitions selected from the Oxford English Dictionary. I'm going to go through those really quickly here so you can sort of see some of the ways these words are being used. First of all, divorce as a noun can be defined as a legal dissolution of marriage by a court or other competent body or according to forms recognized in the country, nation, or tribe. And 2, a complete separation, a disunion of things closely united. In this sense, we can see that there's the legal dissolution of marriage between Brian's parents, but we can also see the use of the word divorce, as a way to describe the family unit. A disunion of things closely united. That family unit is also being disunited. Not to mention the fact that Brian has suffered a divorce from the modern world and from his parents. But divorce can also be a verb, to dissolve the marriage contract between husband and wife by process of law, to separate by divorce from. Number 2, to separate, to sever, cut off, or part. And number 3, to put away, remove, dispel, or repudiate. Now again, we see in the text that divorce clearly refers to the legal dissolution of Brian's parents' marriage. But one could also see Brian's complete separation and disunion from his parents, both emotionally, especially with his mother, whom Brian feels like he can't really trust anymore, but also physically. And certainly Brian has been forcefully separated from his parents and the rest of the civilized world. And that second verb definition I've given you certainly puts us in mind of those violent words that Brian used to describe the term sever, cut off. Gives you a really powerful emotional response. The next word I want to focus on is secret, both an adjective and a noun. First of all, a secret means that it is kept from knowledge or observation, hidden, concealed, an adjective secret. But we can also predictively, meaning kept from public knowledge, to keep secret, or from the knowledge of persons specified, not allowed to be known, or only by selected persons. Of a place, removed from the resort of men, retired, remote, lonely, secluded, solitary, hence affording privacy or seclusion. 4, of a person, etc., secluded from observation. 5, of actions, negotiations, agreements, etc., done or entered into with the intention of being concealed or clandestine. 6, of doctrines, ceremonies, language, signs, methods of procedure, remedies, and the like, kept from the knowledge of the uninitiated. And 7 of feelings, passions, thoughts, not only openly avowed or expressed, concealed, disguised, also in a stronger sense, known only to the subject, inward, inmost, hence said of the heart or soul. Now, again, we have a word here that is frequently focused on, capitalized, repeated. Clearly, it must mean more than simply the common denotation, the surface level understandings of the word, i.e., some information that Brian knows. Brian's mother's affair was, quote, kept from public knowledge. And as it was kept from Brian, the affair is done or entered into with the intention of being concealed. Brian in the woods is certainly kept from knowledge or observation as much as his mother's affair is, and his remote location is removed from the resort of men and left him secluded from observation. Brian's experiences in the woods certainly show him in the process of unlocking knowledge of survival, knowledge that is kept from the uninitiated. And Brian's experience of despair are his alone, not openly avowed or expressed once he returns to the civilized world. This book is full of secrets, and a lot of information is even kept from us, the reader, by way of a limited point of view, as it is kept from Brian, such as the whereabouts of his parents, their actions, whether they're working together to find him, and what kind of reaction he would receive if he ever told his father what he knew. And the last word I want to focus on is the word hatchet as a noun. A smaller or lighter axe with a short handle, adapted for use with one hand. Pretty obvious. But there are also a lot of colloquial phrases that are found published frequently and listed in the Oxford English Dictionary. To hang up one's hatchet means to cease from one's labors and to take a rest. It also means to take up or dig up the hatchet, meaning to take up arms in warfare, to commence hostilities. There's the phrase to bury the hatchet, which means to lay down one's arms, to cease from hostilities. And those two phrases are derived from the customs of North American Indians, according to the OED. And then there's also to throw or fling or sling the hatchet, meaning to make exaggerated statements. There are also listed compounds, including hatchet face, which means a narrow or very sharp face, with an indication that it could be used as a derisory nickname. And likewise, hatchet can be used as a verb to indicate the act of cutting with a hatchet. Now, this is the title of the novel. It's clearly a central item in the story, identified by its prominence in the plot and the title. This could indicate to us that it is symbolic beyond its use as a tool. Is a hatchet indicative of Brian's age and inexperience, as he received it instead of an axe or a machete? Has Brian hung up his hatchet at the end of the novel? Has he buried the hatchet with his mom after her betrayal? All of these questions can be answered and responded to in the discussion board. In fact, one of our discussion board questions asks us to use this kind of diction, formalism, to better understand not just Hatchet, but also Nancy Drew. Head over to the discussion board to give us your responses, and I'll see you in the next video.